Mhm.
Hello, everybody. Just waiting for everybody to arrive. Welcome to PPG, Purpose, Passion, Grit. It's really good to see so many of you here. As a lot of you know, I only do this one once a month. So it's good to see so many people from book club here as well, and some new names as well. So welcome, all of you. And I'm here today with a very old friend of mine. I have known Sarah Hope since we were in our early 20s living in the same block of flats. And I'm so proud of everything that she has achieved. And I haven't actually had a chance to see her for years. So this is amazing. Welcome, Sarah. Welcome to Goldster. It's so good to see you on Zoom. Pity I can't give you a hug.
Thank you.
So you're here today to talk about the incredible work that you have done as a campaigner, as a charity founder. So do you want to start off with telling everybody what happened to you in 2007 and the horrible circumstances that led to you setting up this charity?
Yes, so in 2007, it was actually April the 25th, and my twin sister Victoria had just given birth to her first baby, and my mother Elizabeth came to stay. We were living in Mortlake in London, and we were going to visit Victoria and the baby and help her pack up so she could leave hospital. And we were on our way to the Chelsea in Westminster, and it was such a lovely day, and we decided to get the bus. And we were walking down the road, and it was a beautiful day, and we crossed the bridge over the train line into the bus depot, and unfortunately the bus ran out of control and ran onto the pavement, and tragically my mother was killed, and I was sort of in and out of consciousness because I was under the bus, and Pollyanna lost her leg at that moment.
And that was your little daughter. She was 18 months, is that right, at that time?
Two at the time. Yes.
And I remember it vividly. It was just so awful. And let's move on to what you've done in your mother's name.
Well, so we quite quickly, Pollyanna was under the care of the NHS to get her prosthetic limb. It took about 6 months for her to heal up enough. It was quite hard for her because she was 2 and she'd just about learnt to walk. And then, of course, she had to learn all over again. And it took her quite a while to get used to her first leg because she was so tiny. But after a few years, my family and we started to talk about how amazing the care of the NHS was. And I was starting to learn about children. I did some fundraising for the Limbless Association in this country, and I realized that they were helping to fundraise for children abroad. So I did research about children that lose their limbs abroad in really poor countries and developing countries where the help isn't available. And really the idea of children, amputee children, just simply not being given prosthetic limbs was just almost too awful for me to comprehend, because I now, having had Pollyanna's had her problems throughout her childhood, and she really has, but at least she's been given the legs and the help that she needs to make her life as good as possible. So for children that just don't get the care that they need, it just felt incomprehensible to me. I couldn't fathom it. So we started raising money for children in Sierra Leone. That was our first project. And we set up a charity called Elizabeth's Legacy of Hope, because my mother's name was Elizabeth. She was a very kind, helpful sort of person, just always doing things for people in the community. She was just one of those people. And we felt like, Victoria and I and Christopher, my husband, felt like her legacy should carry on helping people. And it seemed very fitting that we should raise money for children in developing countries to give them prosthetic limbs.
And you've been out to visit the project in Sierra Leone and India, is that right?
Yes.
And so what was that like going? And you also work in, is it Liberia, the other place?
Liberia as well, yes.
You've not been to Liberia yet?
I haven't been to Liberia, no. But I've been to Sierra Leone a couple of times. Sorry?
Your first trip to Sierra Leone, what was it like going there and discovering the work that was being done?
Well, we went to Sierra Leone for the first time as a family. We set up the charity properly in 2011, and we first went out there in 2012. And in fact, what we do is we team up with charities already on the ground, so we can help charity. So we teamed up with a charity called Street Child, and we teamed up with them, and they were doing a big fundraising marathon out there. So I went out there to run half a marathon to raise funds. But the night before I did it, Pollyanna and in fact my other 2 children, Barnaby and Sapphire, suddenly announced they were going to do the 5 kilometers. So actually it was amazing. We got a wonderful film of them and Pollyanna on her crutches doing 5 kilometers. When we first went out there, we couldn't quite believe it because we'd never been to a place like that before. And you sort of have to go to a place like that to believe it. You know, the poverty and chaos and dirt and heat and noise, it just takes you by surprise. Nothing can really prepare you for it. You have to sort of go there. But the people are so grateful. They're so kind, and they're so they're so grateful for any help you can give them. And it's always an incredible experience going out to those places.
Because I remember when first talking to you as Pollyanna was growing up and needing, obviously, as she grew, a regular replacement leg, and the difficulties, even in a country that has, you know, an amazing NHS, how hard it was for Pollyanna and your constant campaigning. And I remember saying, what must it be like to be a parent of those children with absolutely no hope in a country that where, you know, it's hard enough to get basic healthcare, let alone something as specialist as prosthetic limbs.
And as time's gone on, we realised our work is really, really hard because you see children when they're growing. So Pollyanna has had in her life probably, and I've lost count, about 20 bone trimming operations. Because what people don't know, and I didn't know, is that child amputees, their bones continue to grow. And often the muscle and the skin at the bottom of the remaining leg, or the residual stump they call it, it doesn't keep up with the bone growth. So what happens is a lot is that children, as they grow, need their bones trimming. And if they don't have their bones trimmed, it can cause terrible, terrible infections. And one of our amputees died a few years ago, who we got to know in, I really remember her actually. Her name was Mary Artu. She was Pollyanna's age. Lovely little girl. But she died during the Ebola crisis because she couldn't get to the hospital to get the help she needs. And you know, so they get this bone thing called osteomyelitis, which is a terrible, terrible thing to get. But you see, Pollyanna in this country will get the help that she needs.
And it's very painful having that bone trimming operation. It sounds very painful.
Well, it would, I mean, Pollyanna actually did get osteomyelitis once because the doctors, what they want is the bone to grow as much as it can, because what you need is a long stump at the end of your, below your knee. If you lose your leg below your knee, they need a nice long stump so they can fit the prosthetic leg. Pollyanna actually has a short stump. So every time her bone starts to grow, they like to leave it for as long as they can, because they want it to grow. But eventually it's got to be trimmed. So it's very, very painful as the bone starts to grow. Yeah, it can be really, really sore and painful.
And you're trying to do school and everything else that goes with being a child.
Yeah.
You know,
and every time, so for years I've been in hospital with Pollyanna and then calling up the trustees saying, oh, this is what we need and this is happening to Pollyanna, because it's happening to Pollyanna, chances are it is happening to those children out there too.
Well, that's the thing, you are fully aware of what they're going through her journey.
Well, that's it. I've tried to take her journey sort of out there, because otherwise nobody really knows what to expect.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the things that I've learned just from you and in this Zoom as well, more about what amputees go through and for children who are still growing. You know, nobody knows this. It's not talked about, is it? It's part of it is an education process for the rest.
It's an education process. And also, but the really terrible thing is the hospitals don't have, in Sierra Leone, they do not have what people need. So I was in Sierra Leone in 2019 for the last time, and a little girl called Alice, she was in pain and we took her to hospital, and there were No, you see, when the bone is starting to come out, they really need antibiotics because the skin can start to get infected. But there were no antibiotics. If I had my way, and there are charities that do this, but if I had my way, I would take suitcases full of antibiotics out to these countries because, you know, they need antibiotics out there.
Yeah, and we're so lucky in this country. I mean, we, you know, people don't realize, I think sometimes, just how lucky we are compared to other countries. What made you identify Sierra Leone as the first place?
Well, because we met somebody who works for Street Child, so that's how it worked, really. We just got talking to them, so that's why we started in Sierra Leone, and then they were working also in Liberia, which is why we went to Liberia. But the India project's separate to that.
Right. And what makes there such a high instance? Is it kind of in Sierra Leone and Liberia? Is it as a result of conflict? Is this a result of accidents? What is the main reason that there are so many amputee children there?
Well, actually, at the beginning, I thought it would just be sort of landmines, because that's what you sort of hear about. And of course, there was a terrible civil war in Sierra Leone.
Yeah. And
a lot of our sort of older amputees, when we set up in May 2011, were victims of the war, because soldiers, you know, use amputation as a sort of weapon. And it's awful. But actually, there are so many. There's accidents. In India, for example, people travel around on motorbikes all the time, and they put as many children as they possibly can on motorbikes, and then they fall off, and terrible accidents happen. We've got a girl who's lost both her legs because she was electrocuted because the wires aren't properly fixed.
Yeah.
And then in Sierra Leone, and actually in all these countries, very hot countries, you know, they cook on the ground. They have little fires on the ground, and they can trip over the fires and get burnt. And of course, disease and, you know, lack of medicines. And also in Sierra Leone, what's so terrible is as well is witch doctors. You know, parents are taught to believe that if they say, we've got I know a little girl who's brilliant at football. Actually, she actually played football in the Winter Olympics, but she lost her arm because she fell off the top of a cupboard when she was about 3, as children do when they're playing. But her mother wouldn't take her to the hospital because she believes in witch doctors. So really, a child shouldn't lose their arm as a result of an accident like that. But if you sort of have a little break and it doesn't mend, it can result in terrible problems later. And we know a little boy who lost his leg in a landslide. Yeah, there's all sorts of reasons.
Wow. And the work that you're doing there, you are helping improve the healthcare there, do you think? Or is it a separate thing? Do you work with hospitals themselves? Do you have a mobile unit that goes around? How do you get the prosthesis prosthetic limbs?
In India, so in India, we have a project in an orphanage, and that's very well set up. It's very well organized. It's very well set up, and we help fund the project within the orphanage. And then when I went to India, and I think it was 2017, they launched something called the Elizabeth Panton, which is my mother's name, the Elizabeth Panton Mobile Clinic. And it goes around the villages. And what it can do, because you see, the amputees and their families, they find it hard to get to the clinic, you see, because they don't have transport, obviously, except for a motorbike. So if they need a sort of leg fitting with the mobile van, we can go and fit the legs there. They at their homes, they don't have to come to the clinic, which is really fantastic.
Wow. Yeah. But so how did you go? Sorry, I interrupted what you were saying.
Oh, I can't remember saying that. Oh yeah. But of course, and then the charities that we work with have to then team up with the hospitals if operations are needed and things like that.
So going back to the beginning, when you knew you wanted to set up the charity, what is the process? You know, was it extremely difficult to do? How did you start thinking this is what we're going to do and make it reality?
Oh, to set up the charity. Yeah. So we've got a great friend in London who let us set up a charity from his office. And doorbell.
Don't worry about the doorbell, ignore it. They'll go away.
Yeah. So yeah, this friend of ours and set up the charity from his office in London, which was fantastic. Couldn't have done it without his support. And then somebody that works for him helped to do all the sort of charity sort of really help. I'm not very good at that sort of thing. I don't think I would be very good if I had to physically set up the charity on my own.
Yeah.
I needed a team of people to help me. So we got some friends to help. And then, yeah, it just sort of happened.
Well, it's been amazing. And you have regular fundraising events. You do, I know you do a big Christmas Carol concert. You do all sorts of fundraising events. And it's an amazing charity. In fact, I'm going to put the link into the chat so that everybody here can actually have a look at it if they want to. elizabethslegacyofhope.org. Okay, so I want to ask you a little bit about, you talked briefly earlier about the Paralympics, and I know that after the Paralympics 2012, you set up a new campaign. Would you tell us how that came about and what it was involving?
Oh yeah, no, this is quite exciting. So when the Paralympics happened in 2012 here, and everyone was all excited, we were watching the Paralympics just like everyone else, and we went to the Paralympics. We actually met Oscar Pistorius, believe it or not, before he had his massive fall from grace.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I know he was a huge hero of your daughter's, wasn't he? I remember how devastating that case was to her.
Well, we'd actually started to link up with him, and we were hoping he might help us with the charity, but then it all went pear-shaped. But anyway, never mind. Well, it does mind, but moving on from that. The running blades, I remember we were all chatting. We said, oh, Pollyanna, you should have one of those running blades because you need to be able to run around, because before that, the legs were very static and children could walk, maybe do a tiny little sort of trot, but you can't run on them. And children actually need to be able to run around after their friends in the playground. It's not about being a Paralympian and about getting a medal around your neck. It's literally about being a child. So I went to the NHS and they annoyed me because they said, no, you can't have one of those, Pollyanna, because we can't afford to give you one. And I just thought that was really mean because you're going on about the Paralympic legacy, how marvellous it is. And then when people need to be able to, have one of these things, we were told can't have one.
And you just think how obvious it is that a child should be able to run. I mean, it really I'd never thought before about the different types of legs that are needed with prosthetic limbs. I also remember when she was doing ballet, she lost points once because she couldn't point the toe of her false leg. And
everyone in her ballet class got really good. Everyone in her ballet class got really good marks, and she only scraped a pass because she got marked down for footwork.
It's incredible, and how how people don't realize how important that is. I'd never thought before about the different types. So you decided that it wasn't fair. She didn't. That children couldn't get a running blade.
I was properly cross actually. I thought that was just not fair. It was hard enough.
Yeah.
So, and also the government were talking about the Paralympic legacy, and everyone was going on about what a great legacy we have now. But actually, if you can't give people what they need, or it's only people that can afford to buy them, or people that are sponsored, but children aren't sponsored.
Yeah, totally.
So I just started writing lots of letters and kicking up a big stink. And then I thought, well, if I'm doing that for Pollyanna, why don't I just do it for all the children? So it became a campaign for amputee children. And it took about 2 years. And then eventually George Osborne stood up in his budget and said, I'm delighted to say I'm going to give £1.5 million to the NHS for the next 2 years to provide activity limbs for amputee children.
Brilliant.
So now all amputee children in the country have these running blades on the NHS.
That's fantastic.
Which is why you see them really generally on blades, because you can get different sorts of blades. You can get blades to really be an athlete on, which are the big curly ones.
Yeah.
And then you can get blades with a sort of foot on, which helps you to just walk and run a bit and be active, which is really what I wanted.
Yeah, fantastic. And so did you see it make a big difference to Pollyanna? Did it make a difference to her mental health as well?
Oh, huge difference. Yeah, massive difference. The day she got it, I've got a little film somewhere of her just literally running in the park, going downhill and doing a huge cartwheel.
Fantastic.
And now sometimes if I go to events or I meet other people, I get quite moved. They say to me, oh, thank you for I met a little boy the other day and his mother said, oh, thank you so much. I'm so grateful that Thomas has now got a running blade.
That's brilliant.
I know, that's quite moving because I can really see it, it's really, it has changed the life of children, and it probably will enhance the Paralympic legacy, because
I was going to say the next Paralympics, you're probably going to see somebody who's running because as a child they were able to get it's called an activity limb. Is that what George Osborne called it? And therefore they will then graduate onto an athletic running blade.
Brilliant. I think George Osborne probably called it a running blade, but I try. Sorry.
I was going to say, seeing a few people nodding and smiling. If anyone wants to put any comments in the chat, please do. If you've got any questions or comments for Sarah, please do, as always, put it in the chat. Sorry, Sarah, you were saying.
Oh yeah, and so I got a Pride of Britain award for that, which I was really totally amazed by.
So what happened then?
Well, I just remember we went to they did a dance event thing. Somebody from diversity, did a dance. Ashley. I
don't think you're talking to the right audience here. We're all going to go, who?
Anyway.
Some celeb, anyway.
A massive dance event, and all these children came along in their running blades.
Wow.
And it was just like, wow. Pollyanna was actually feeling really ill that day. She had a bad cold, so it was such a great day for her. But yeah, it's just great to see that. That's lovely when I see children with their and just running around the playground, just doing normal things.
Yeah, brilliant. That's exactly what you wanted it for. Now, I know that Pollyanna is now a serious dancer. So tell us about that journey and the ballet leg and how that happened.
Well, so yeah, Pollyanna's a strong personality and she will do what she wants to do. So and then when she was about 10, she was watching a program on television there was a children's program called The Next Step. And it was all these really trendy dancers in this dance school in America doing this fantastic dancing. And she would literally watch television in the kitchen and just copy them all the time. And then, because she'd stopped dancing for a bit before that, she was doing sort of other things. And then she suddenly said, I want to be a dancer again. So we said, that's fine, you can be a dancer. So we got some dancing lessons, and then it just took off. And then she was just doing loads and loads of dancing and just doing really well at it. And I don't think she would have been able to do it had she not had the activity leg. But she just loved it. And then she was invited to join something called the Contemporary Advanced Training in London. So she's at the London School of Contemporary Dance on Saturdays and Tuesdays, and she's doing really well there and absolutely loves it. And it's her, that's what she loves. And then last year, she managed to get herself a place in the English National Ballet Youth Company. Fantastic. So she just loves it.
Is she the only amputee dancer in the company?
Yeah, in both of the company. It's quite unusual. It is in fact, Pollyanna is the only one that I know of. I think she's the only one.
She is amazing. I mean, I've seen her on YouTube and things. She is incredible. I follow her on Instagram, and she posts really beautiful things. Now, she's recently done a TV advert, hasn't she? Tell us about that.
Oh yeah, that's exciting. She danced in the Toyota advert. So I think it's on YouTube if anyone wants to look at it. So
it was around the time of the Paralympics, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was for the Winter Olympics this year.
Yes.
So the one that we've just had, Toyota sponsored the Winter Paralympics. So Pollyanna was the sort of face of the Winter Paralympics. Yeah,
and she was brilliant. I mean, I watched it, and she danced in Times Square as well, didn't she, when she went to New York?
She went to Times Square with Christopher, her father, and they had a great time, because actually there's a charity out there called Penta who help provide prosthetic parts for prosthetic limbs, and they're helping to provide prosthetic parts for our project in Liberia.
Fantastic.
And they're a very big charity, and they're sort of funded by Kevin Bacon is
Right.
one of their sponsors. So he introduced her, which was really exciting.
Oh,
And
that's amazing.
so Christopher got some lovely pictures of Pollyanna in Times Square, and she danced for Penta's a fundraising event.
Brilliant. Now we're going to move on to the helpline that you've just helped to found. Do you want to tell us about it? The Sarah Hope line. You actually have a helpline named after. I'm going to put the link on here for anybody who may know anybody as well who needs it. So this is with Transport for London. I know it's taken a long time. Tell us about the journey.
Oh, right. Well, this is sort of, so after everything had happened to us, and it was all really, really difficult, I think it's very complicated, road crashes, because there's people go through such dreadful experiences with the legal system. You have criminal investigations. If you're injured, there's personal injury law involved. It's an absolutely awful system. It's very hard to navigate the legal system if you don't understand it, and most people don't. Why would they? Because lawyers it's almost like they speak in their own language, and it was a horrible system. And I wanted Metro Line, the bus company that did this, to say sorry, and they didn't. To be honest with you, I felt they were really awful to us. They were horrible to my whole family, because of the whole insurance claim going through and all that stuff. It was just awful. And so the whole thing happened in 2007, and it was such a difficult battle for years to just organize Pollyanna's limbs. And I couldn't walk for a very long time myself. And
well, that's what you've not covered actually, is how injured you were. I know you were very injured yourself, and it took a long time to get over that with your own injury.
Yeah, I had a terrible injury called it sounds awful, a degloving. It's not pleasant. It's when your muscle comes off the back of your leg, and all the nerves are going to be damaged basically for the rest of my life. I don't think there's much I can do about it, and I have days when it's still very uncomfortable indeed. I don't know. I don't think there's much I can do about it. But no, I was dealing with the loss of my mother and Pollyanna, so I suppose I've let my injuries sort of go by the by a bit. But what was I saying?
Just how difficult it was dealing with the lawyers and everyone and TfL and not getting an apology from the company.
And so Boris Johnson was the mayor, and I wrote to him, and I actually met him at an event, and he said, "I'm very sorry about what happened to you." And I said, "Well, yes, if you're really sorry about what happened, TfL have got to say sorry, and Metro have got to say sorry." And he said, "Have they never apologized?" He was actually very good about it. He said, "Have they never apologized?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Right, well, I'm going to make sure that happens." And it did happen pretty soon after I met him. And I said, "If you really are sorry, you're going to mean you're sorry, and we're going to do something about it." And then after about 2 years of my campaigning about and talking to Transport for London, literally in my own time, just going in there and talking about what people need, it was amazing how many people at the top of these companies don't understand anything about the trauma that people go through. It's awful. I said we needed a voice of kindness. You need to be kind to people. And eventually the Sarah Hope line was set up, which is a line that if people are caught up in road crashes in London, but it's turned out the line has helped a lot of people who are injured on the underground or on other modes of London transport. There is a line now that they can ring up, and they can speak to somebody from Transport for London that will say, "We're terribly sorry this has happened to you." And they help them with counselling, or for example, we might help them with, if they've got somebody in hospital, we might pay for their families to go and visit. Or for a few months, we might, if say the main breadwinner of the family is terribly injured and there's no money coming in to the family, we might cover their costs for a few months and help them get sorted out and direct people to the right places where they can get the support they need. Because otherwise it's just a complete minefield.
Yeah, so important. I'm just going to share my screen for a second, and I'm going to show, this is Sarah and her daughter Pollyanna next to the posters for the new Sarah Hope line, which I think is so fabulous. I'm also
I can't believe that picture's gone everywhere.
Oh, you sent it to me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to show you this as well. Now I'm going to see if I can move this over. Now, can I move this over a bit more into the center? So here we have one of the children in India, I believe.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Center, which is just so moving. And then this is Sarah's daughter, Pollyanna.
Oh, yes, there she is. That's her in America.
So, and was this part of her Toyota commercial that she filmed, or was this part of the?
No, that was when she went to America, actually.
Okay, sorry, yes.
So that was separate. Yeah.
Brilliant. So as you can see, serious consummate dancer, and as you said, now she's part of a really prestigious ballet school. So it's wonderful.
Yeah, she's very excited. She loves it. She loves it. She loves the company of the other dancers, her friends there. And yeah, I think dancing, she would say, it makes us sort of feel free and happy, and it's great. Yeah. Lovely.
So having set up the Sarah Hope line, which, as you know, I've occasionally seen posters around London. It's not as many as I'd hope, but you know, there are quite a few, which is great.
I'm working on it.
And is this what you're focusing your time on? Because I know that you've now got the Elizabeth's Legacy of Hope is very well run by other people now. Are you focusing your energy more on the Sarah Hope line for the moment?
I'm trying to. It's complicated because it is complicated because I'm only freelance. I don't work at Transport for London.
Of course.
So there's other people running it.
Yeah. And
sometimes they just want to do it. But I want to remain involved.
Of course.
You know, because it's my baby and I want to be involved. So I'm, for example, going for a meeting with the safeguarding team on the Underground on Thursday to talk about more that we can do for people on the Underground, and also to raise awareness of the line. Because in the pandemic, we're feeling quite strongly at the moment that even transport workers sometimes don't even know about the line. So if they have a customer that needs help, we've been helping a lot of actually people who've families of suicide victims, which is it's terrible. And especially as we came out of the pandemic, those numbers went up a lot. And so I want to, we do help a lot of people on the Underground, and people, you know, there are things that happen that you don't really hear about, people falling down escalators and things. And that's really tragic because escalators are so dangerous, really.
And have you been amazed at how many people have been in touch? I mean, have you been shocked by how many people are affected by accidents on the Transport for London network?
Well, yes, I think that's why we need to keep raising awareness of the line, because with the line, I don't think the line is really helping enough people. I'm not very good at figures myself, but you know, about 3,500 to 4,000 people are seriously injured in London every year. And we help about 200 a year or something like that, you know. So we need to just keep helping more people.
It's getting awareness out there, really.
It's getting the awareness out there, which is but we're having a big relaunch of the line in a couple of months, I hope. It's been a very difficult time for Transport for London with the pandemic, because of course the numbers of the people on the line, on the Underground and everywhere on the whole transport network was so low that they've got to get it all back up and running properly. And then Crossrail is opening very soon. So when that is up and run, I'm hoping the Sarah Hope line they've said it will be a priority for them again.
Good. Yeah, and I think that, you know, anybody here, if you know anybody who's been affected by it, I've put in the chat the link, so please do pass that on or share it on your social media or whatever, because I think it's a really important service for people to know about.
Well, I think people do need to know about it, because we also help witnesses of traumatic incidents, because you see, if you witness something really traumatic and something awful, you may think, oh no, that was awful, I'm going to just go to work now and I'm going to put it at the back of my mind. But if you've witnessed something really bad, it may affect you for a long time afterwards. So we are there to help you if you need help, because you've witnessed something. So that's important for people to know.
That is very important. You've just received, moving on to something about happier, an MBE, haven't you?
Oh yeah. Oh, I should have it with me now. It's in the kitchen. Yes. I got it last week.
Hilarious. So tell us about that, because obviously it was postponed, your receiving of it, by the pandemic. When did you first hear about it, and when did you actually have the ceremony?
I couldn't believe it. It was I heard about it in 2019. I think it was a sort of wet November night or something, and I was just sort of toddling around. I don't know what I was doing in the kitchen, and I got a letter, and I was like, oh no, it's an email. I just read the email.
That's hilarious. I thought it would have been a really important letter on headed paper.
No, actually, no, it was an email, and I had to read it about 3 times. Then I said, Pollyanna, what's this? And she goes, oh, Mummy, I think you've got an honour or something. And I was like, and then I rang up Christopher, and Christopher knew that it was in the process of happening, but hadn't been able to tell me. So he was like, oh wow, it's finally come through.
Brilliant.
And then the very hard thing is you're not allowed to tell anyone at all.
Oh yeah, you can't tell anyone, or you can have it taken away from you.
Yeah, exactly. You simply can't tell anyone. So I literally had to keep my mouth zip my mouth. And then it was announced in December the 31st, I suppose, 2019. So that would be the 2020 New Year's honours, which is nice. Yeah. And
then of course 2020 you couldn't have the ceremony.
No.
So when did you receive your MBE?
Or 2021. Yeah, 2020 and 2021 went by. And then I was meant to get it on the 9th of February this year, finally. And I got COVID that morning.
I can't believe it.
So I was literally all dressed up with nowhere to go.
I didn't know that bit of it. Oh my goodness.
I was feeling a bit tired, but I didn't feel that bad. And I read the letter and I said, oh, Chris, we must do our COVID tests because we can't go without a lateral flow. And I did it.
Oh no. So when did you finally get the award?
Last Tuesday.
Last Tuesday.
Last Tuesday morning. Yes.
And did it feel really amazing after 2.5 years of waiting?
Yeah, it felt really nice. I didn't dare get too excited about it because I thought I didn't want to be disappointed by anything. I just want this to be a lovely day. And it was a lovely day. And we went to Windsor Castle, and they were all the staff there are so amazingly polite and just really nice. And the whole day was just, it was lovely.
Fantastic. Really nice. And very, very well deserved. That's brilliant.
Oh, you're so kind. And Prince Charles was just gorgeous. I mean, I was just like, wow.
Good. Excellent. Did he know about your work?
Well, he'd obviously been well briefed.
Yes, of course. But do you think he genuinely took an interest? Because I'd imagine it would be something he would be interested in.
I think he probably did. I always think it's a bit, our story is a little bit sort of, so my mother died in a terrible road crash. Like Diana died in a road crash. We all know Harry helps amputees.
Yeah.
So
it's all a lot of it.
It's all a bit similar, really.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know whether or not he knew about my story, because of course he's in touch with so many people all the time, and how can you possibly be across everything? I'm sure he probably wasn't. He probably very, very well briefed. Yeah. I remember meeting Prince William at the Pride of Britain, and he really seemed to know about the story, actually. But you know, these people are living a different life, aren't they?
Yeah.
Talking to people all the time.
But it's great that you felt that there was, you'd had that real recognition by finally getting your award. Very proud.
Well, I am so not doing it for awards or anything like that. It's just a bit of fun that comes along.
Yeah.
And if it happens, and I think having an MBE though, I do feel like I've got to make the most of it, because you do have to, I can't sit on my laurels.
Yes. Also, have you got another project? Have you got something else in the offing?
Well, I'm doing I'm just doing a lot of food bank and things like that at the moment. But I am thinking, I really want to crack on with Transport for London, because I really want the Sarah Hope line to get better. Mm-hmm. I want to help more people. I'm a bit anxious about the help for adult amputees on the NHS, because I know things are going to change when Pollyanna turns 18.
So is that likely to be something that you then continue with? Because I was wondering about adult amputees, and if you'll be able to kind of step in there and...
Well, they won't continue to give Pollyanna activity legs when she's an adult. They've already told me that now. but I think I have talked to them. I think what their argument is that walking legs have developed so much and they're getting so much better that it may be a very difficult argument to have.
Right.
Because I've already been told that they are developing their walking legs so much that they are almost activity legs, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, but I will think I do have a few things. Yes, I've got one in up here.
I bet you've got a million different things in there. So you mentioned the food bank earlier. I know we've talked before that you found volunteering very effective in helping deal with grief. Do you want to talk to us about that? Because I know that you're very passionate that people should volunteer.
Well, yeah, if people can volunteer, I do encourage my son Barnaby, for example. So he's nearly 22. So he was he was just halfway through his first year of university, having a great time when the first lockdown happened. And that's when I really began doing food bank. And I got him and actually my other daughter Sapphire as well a little bit involved, because it was very difficult suddenly having them all in the house again when they actually wanted to be at university.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very important because you feel better about yourself if you can help other people. Just do something small, because you meet people and it makes you, well, it's really fun to do volunteering. You meet people, you do interesting things. You feel like every time you've done something useful, like you've done the food bank or something, it makes you feel better. It just makes you feel better, so it helps you if you're feeling a bit, oh, what should I do? And it obviously you're helping the people and you have a chat with people, and yeah, I really love it. I really love it actually. And I would recommend it because I think it's good for everybody. It's not just good for the people you're helping. It's good to meet people and go out and have a bit of fun while you're doing it. And there's so many different volunteering things you can do out there. You can do it once a week, once a month. You don't have to do it all the time. There's so many, there's so many different opportunities out there. And it is good. It's good fun. I think that's what people have to remember. It can be fun actually, and you can just enjoy it.
Yes, I think we've talked a lot particularly on PPG, but sometimes in book club as well, about the importance of taking care of the whole of your health. And of course, Goldster is all about healthy aging. And I think mental health is something that people are being so much more aware of now. We actually had last month on PPG a psychotherapist called Sasha Bates, who is a grief counsellor, and she wrote a book after her husband died very unexpectedly. She was very young, only in her 40s when she was widowed, and the importance of taking care of your mental health and your physical health together because of the huge impact that both have. And as you said yourself, after the accident, you were dealing with the loss of your mother, you're also helping your sister when she'd just given birth, and you were dealing with your daughter's terrible injuries. So you didn't have time to think about your own injuries. And a lot of what you were feeling had been subsumed. And I think it's great that being able to do the volunteering is able to help you, deal with a lot of the stuff that you've been through, because it's really tough what you've been through.
Yeah, I don't think that people, because I help with the Salvation Army food bank, and I don't know if they know that I'm doing it for me as much as I'm doing it for the people I'm helping. I'm giving food to, but I do genuinely enjoy it. I genuinely just, sometimes I'm sorting out the food and putting it into different, I'm sorting out all the food and putting it into different baskets and all that business, and chatting to the person I'm helping, or other days I'm doing deliveries. And when it was the vaccine rollout, I helped in the car park, just directing people into the vaccine centre. So I did that for a long time. Yeah.
And did it feel good to be a part of something during the pandemic? To actually feel that you were doing something to help?
It felt very cold sometimes because I was standing in the car park in the rain.
And what happened with your project, particularly I'm thinking in India during the pandemic, because India went into such severe lockdown. Has it been very, very difficult with Elizabeth's Legacy of Hope?
Really hard, really, really, really hard. Yeah, so what we did, and there was a lot of talk about this, whether or not we could do it or couldn't we, but we did actually provide hygiene kits and things like that, just to help people wash and keep clean. So if they couldn't get to the clinic or we couldn't get to them because you couldn't see them, at least they could keep clean. And we did that in Sierra Leone and Liberia as well. Because you see, you have to, there's no washing facility. I mean, do you remember that? Of course, it was wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. We have a sink and a tap, and we have soap.
And running water constantly there.
And running water constantly there. People in these countries, in Sierra Leone, they've got, some of them live on a dump. I mean,
yeah, I think it's, you know, in this country, we're so apt to forget just how lucky we are to have good sanitation. You know, I've done volunteering in Latin America, and I know you shouldn't ever take fresh water for granted. And in fact, you know, buying bottled water in this country is so crazy when we have tap water that is safe and healthy. When you go to other countries and you realize that you can't have a drink unless you've gone and bought a bottle of water from somewhere. Yeah,
and people can't afford to buy water.
To keep yourself, you know, hygienically clean, particularly if you are an amputee or have another health condition that is at risk of infection. Yeah,
but people in these countries, they can't afford to buy bottled water, so they literally don't have clean water.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? Wow. We're going to come back in a couple of seconds. I'm just going to tell everybody what is coming up. So for those of you who are coming along to the book club, of course, this Thursday, you've got Humphrey this Thursday, and he is interviewing Helen McGinn. Now, she is a novelist and a TV wine expert, and she's written a book called The Knackered Mother's Wine Guide, which I think a lot of people may decide speaks to their life at the moment. And then on Friday, I am interviewing Sarita Domingo, who is a novelist, and she is the author of this book, amongst others, The Three of Us. She's also had I'm really enjoying it. It's very easy read, very, very quick to read, and she writes really well. And she's also an editor. She's a commissioning editor in adult commercial fiction. She has written children's books and young adult books, as well as her books for adults. She used to be a commissioning editor for Mills and Boon, but she's now working outside the romance sector. So she's going to talk to us a lot about her career. And then the following week, which I think some of you know, I'm already very excited about. On Thursday, the 19th of May, I'm interviewing one of my heroes from childhood, who is the author Brian Patten. He was one of the Liverpool poets in the 1960s who did for poetry what the Beatles did for music in Liverpool. They were incredibly cool. And he was together with Roger McGuff and Adrian Henry, who's no longer alive. So if you've probably heard Roger McGuff on the radio, Brian Patten does wonderful poetry, some for adults, some for children. And if you know anyone who's a teacher, his poetry is often taught in schools because they're just fantastic. Now, also to mention, and then, on the 20th of May, on Friday, the 20th of May, Humphrey is interviewing Rachel Trethaway, who is the author of The Churchill Girls, the story of Winston's daughters. So that is what's coming up on the book club. And then on PPG, we've got, I'm just having a quick check to see, Humphrey next week is interviewing Jim Clemente, and then the following week we've got Alistair Hignell interviewing Christine Truman, who is a tennis player who was active in the 1950s to the 1970s, and she helped Great Britain win various Grand Slams and win the Whiteman Cup. So I'm also looking on the Excel document at the moment. Rosie Stancer is interviewing Charles Blackmore, soldier, explorer, and the leader of the first Trans-Taklamakan expedition, and the first by foot. The first Taklamakan expedition since Sven Hedin. Gosh, that is a difficult one to promo. That's on the 31st of May. And next month, my PPG guest is the lovely Bernard Purrier, who is an expert in cetaceans. That's whales, dolphins, and porpoises. For those of you who don't know, they are my passion. I met Bernard because I'm also a volunteer speaker for the same charity, Whale and Dolphin Conservation, and Bernard is the absolute shining star. He's worked there for years. He teaches me everything I need to know, and he's just incredible and passionate about whales, dolphins, and porpoises. So that is in June. I hope you will join me again for that. But you've got Rosie, Alistair, and Humphrey coming up in the next few weeks, and of course me and Humphrey on the book club. So for those of you who haven't come along to book club events, please do, Thursdays and Fridays at lunchtime. And in case you might think at the end of June that you're seeing double, it's not Sarah who's going to be with me at the end of June, it's her identical twin sister, Victoria. They are the most identical twins I've ever met. When we lived in the same building, I often didn't know which was which unless I knew what clothing they were wearing. So if you're thinking at the end of June, Oh, hang on a minute. This is a Swizz. She's been on before. She actually hasn't, but you might think she has. So we've had a lovely comment in the chat. So inspiring. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah. It has been lovely.
Thank you, Lucinda.
It's been great to see you. I'm sorry it's just been on Zoom. I hope it gets to be in person at some point when everything gets more back to normal.
It will, yeah.
And thank you to the comments in the chat. Another one, thank you. Great talk. I'm really glad you've all enjoyed it. Of course, for any of your friends who couldn't come along, this will, of course, be available on Catch Up on the Goldster website. And I do hope that you have all seen the new brand spanking new Goldster website, which is very exciting. It's just been launched this week. So do check it out if you haven't done already. We've got various comments, fantastic, so inspirational. Thank you. Sarah, you've been an absolute joy to interview.
It's gorgeous to see you.
I'm very glad I didn't actually cry. I got close to it a couple of times.
I could see your eyes.
I know, it's terrible. I can't hide anything. Well, I knew your mum and she was lovely. So I really feel for you all. Maria says, thank you for giving up your time to come and talk to us. And Kathy says,
it's my pleasure. Thank you.
And we will all look out for the Sarah Hope line. And I've just asked people, if you're in London, you see the poster, take a photo and share it on social media.
Yes, and hopefully there might be some more posters one day. I'll work on it.
Thank you for all your great comments. They're coming in thick and fast. Thank you, everybody. Sarah, good luck with your future campaigns. I'm looking forward to seeing what you do with adult amputee kind of rights on the NHS. Good luck with that. I'm getting the Sarah Hope line further out there. For all of you who've watched today, I really appreciate you coming along. Take care, everybody. I shall see you on Friday at Book Club and June with Bernard Perrier.
Thanks, Lucinda. Bye.
Bye. So Sarah and I are going to turn our screens off now. Thank you.
Lucinda, I shall speak to you soon.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Bye.